Hey everyone, so welcome to my new office. As you can see, still trying to get settled in, but I did move in here I've lost all track of the day with the 4th of July in there, so a couple days ago, but I still need to put together my bookcase and get everything situated. But thanks for joining me here. Wanted to just go live, give you guys a couple updates, answer questions kind of as we go along. I couldn't even get my computer to do it so I could do a video on my computer, so we are on my phone this morning. Hold on one sec, I want to make sure I get to the video as it's playing right now, so that I can answer questions. I gotta look at the stream up here. Live video. How do I even find that? Oh my gosh. I am like completely inept this morning at doing this. But so while I'm doing that, I will give you guys some updates. I'm almost at 25,000 guys, like less than 50 people away. Hey Nancy, what time is it there, Nancy? Interested. Almost there. So as soon as I hit 25,000, I'm gonna pick a name out of everybody so that I can schedule a Zoom video with them and they can answer questions for me. Hey Nicole, they can answer questions or ask me questions kind of live on our Zoom, and we can make a video out of it. So really excited to see that. Hey Bree, 3:30 there. You're just finishing your work day. I am at the point, I hate to say, that I cannot reply to every comment on my videos. Finally hit that moment. So lately, if I have not replied to your comment, I am so sorry. It's kind of one of those points I knew I'd get to eventually and tried as long as I could, but I was spending a very large amount of time trying to do even a thank you comment to everyone. So I am still getting in there and answering questions. Hey, good morning, Gary. And getting you guys some responses. If you do have questions that are imminent and you want to make sure you get an answer from me, email it to me at kari@karinorthey.com. I will see it. I will give you an answer. I'll either respond to your email or I'll do a video response, but I'm going to tell you either way what I'm going to be doing. So I just want to make sure people are getting answers they need in some form or another. Last year I did a week of videos where I did one video every day, and I'm going to try that again coming up here soon. This morning I'm doing some video planning and lists upon lists upon lists upon lists at my desk here so that I have some really good content coming up. I'm getting some things scheduled in. We have a brand new crematory going in very close to me, so I'm going to try and get in there to do a tour before it opens so you can see what a brand new crematory looks like. They have a retort that is geared up to, I want to say it's like 1,200 pounds or 1,300, like it's a much larger capacity retort than I have seen before in this area, so I'm intrigued and interested to check that out as well. And so we'll be doing that soon. I went on a Crown Hill Cemetery tour with Megan and Lindsay recently, and I have a lot of content and a lot of historical information to get edited for that. So I know some of you have said, hey, go to Crown Hill. I've been there. It was amazing. So that should be coming soon as well. I'm going to be visiting a florist, talking about funeral flowers. So a lot coming up. So I've got some questions from Mike in Minnesota. Do you apply cosmetics before or after casketing? Many say both ways, both claiming their way is best and not getting cosmetic all over the pillow. Your thoughts and why? I typically will do before, just because you can easily get to both sides of the person's head by walking around the table. Once somebody is in the casket, you have to lean over them or try to get around the top to get to the back. What is the corner post? Try to get to the back side, and so it's a little harder to do, but I will typically do cosmetic before, put like tissues or paper towel over the hands and face, move them into the casket, and then do touch-ups. and then do touch-ups once they're set up in the room, because typically you have fluorescent crappy lighting for viewing in a prep room. So if they look good in there, you know they're going to usually look good under the regular lights in the visitation room or in the Matt, okay, or in the church. So Matt, when do you get cremated remains back after someone's been donated? On the paperwork you fill out, it'll give you a timeline. A lot of the schools around here are up to 2 years, and some of them don't give heads up, and you may just randomly get his package of his cremated remains in the mail. So read over that paperwork that you signed, and it will give you a timeline, and you can always call and ask the school if they're going to be giving you a heads up that he is going to be coming in the mail. I always thought it was really odd that there was no heads up, like maybe a letter a week before you received them, like we have completed using your loved one for anatomical donation. In the next week you'll be getting their cremated remains back to you via the mail or something. And I'm sure some of them do, but what I've heard from one specific school is that they don't. So hopefully it's not too long of a timeline for you. Sometimes it is a shorter timeline, like 3 to 4 months. So, hey Megan, thank you. Tried to spruce myself up for you guys. I haven't been doing my hair or makeup for the last week while we've been moving. And Matt, you're welcome. Mike also asked, have you used an air sprayer to apply cosmetics? Again, your thoughts. I have seen, hey Daniel, I have seen some amazing results from like an airbrush cosmetics. Jillian, typically in a box. So like a temporary box that a crematory would use, a temporary box, typically like a black or a brown plastic box inside of a cardboard box sometime. Bree, I don't know if I did. I haven't done much commenting because we've been moving in the last week. So what is your question? Go ahead and post it here. Hopefully I'll see it. So the air sprayer is really good when you have to do restorative art and use a lot of wax, because when you try and touch the brush to the wax, it often will mess with the wax work that you've done. So when you use that airbrush sprayer, you can spray the coloring on to what you've done, or even decomposing or someone with skin slip. As soon as you touch that tissue, it kind of sloughs off. When you use the airbrush, it's kind of hands off, connection, and so that way you're not messing up the work that you had previously done. There's my live. Oh, I gotta turn off my sound. There, because I'm only seeing a few of your comments, guys. Corner post. I don't know what the corner post is, Drew. I'll have to, I think that's to do with cemetery. All right, so how would you go about a funeral for a baby that has died 1 month before it was supposed to be born? So like an 8-month-old baby, or gestational fetus, essentially. Just the same you would anyone else. You would embalm the child or do, any kind of preservation, get a casket, gravesite, funeral, burial, kind of all the same steps. You would, if they wanted to be cremated, kind of the same steps as well. A funeral home going out of business as opposed to just abandoning business. So this is where it gets tricky, and you're gonna see videos on YouTube of this, and I've seen it happen where people close and they just leave records or all sorts of things in the building, and so there's a lot left around, which is actually really frightening. But there isn't really regulation. I don't know of any rules or laws that are in place as to how things are need to be disposed of or destroyed. And so you will find things that are just abandoned, as you say. And so they do look old and creepy, especially if you go in the prep room. Things are just dusty and, maybe rusted at that point. And so they look super creepy, but it's just an abandoned room, and that's how it's going to look over time. So by, time standard, it's going to look creepy. Do you completely empty the intestines when you aspirate? So when you're aspirating, your goal is to puncture as many holes in and suck out as much fluid and dissolved food and things that are in there, urine, everything, to a fluid that might be in the lungs or in anywhere else by puncturing holes. You also want to hit pockets of blood that are in there. And so you kind of watch what comes through the tube to know how you're doing and how close you're getting to being done. So typically about 20 minutes. Some people will aspirate for 45 minutes, like on the dot. They just keep moving for 45 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. I go until I stop hitting pockets of stuff and until that fluid going, or the fluid going through is clear, which means I'm mostly getting just the water or a little bit of, just a little bit of fluid, but not a lot coming through. So that's your goal. You're not trying to essentially empty anything because there's still going to be chunks that you can't get because the holes are really small, but you want to get the fluid out for the most part and make as many holes as you can within there. Have done donation. Lee, do you mean anatomical donation like to a school or tissue donation like skin, eyes, heart, etc.? Yeah, so autopsy doesn't affect viewability. It doesn't affect whether you do a visitation or not. So any funeral home that ever told you you can't have a viewing because there's an autopsy is full of crap. I don't understand why they would ever say that. No, I don't dread doing the aspirating, Leanne. It's kind of like vacuuming in a way that you see. There's some people who love vacuuming because you can see like what you're doing. You see it getting clean. You see it getting, a change happening. And that's kind of why I like embalming in all the parts, because you see this change happening and you can see kind of instant gratification from what you're doing. So it's, yeah, nope, I don't dread it. How do you lay out someone with skeletal deformities? So they may be, someone doesn't need to just lay straight in a casket. My grandma had kind of a hunchback, so we just built the pillow area up so that she laid comfortably. You don't want them like a foot off the pillow because their body curves differently or their hips, completely. Say they laid on their side for 2 years, or someone who is always bedridden, their body's going to lay in a certain way that they laid comfortably. So you just work with positioning with pillows and maybe some towels in certain placements to try and get them laying that you can view them at a normal angle, but their body may be, their legs may be off to the side or their knees may be upward rather than laying down. So you just work with that. Do you ever feel nauseous when seeing gross stuff come out of the body? I have one time gagged, just kind of gagged when I saw something coming out of the body. TMI if you're eating breakfast, but the person had pooped, which happens, poop comes out. It just happens when you're embalming, but they had corn. So gross. I don't know what about it, just like kind of gagged me in the moment. So that was one of the few times that I just couldn't do it. I have not had a funeral I couldn't do emotionally. I have done, everything put in front of me. It's basically, yes, I will take the challenge. I have had embalmings where I've said, I don't know if I can do this. And it's like you need to announce it out loud almost, and then you just go and do it. I had usually it's on children. If it's, somebody that's close to the age of your child or something like that, you don't think you can do it, and then you do it, and you don't know how you do it, but you just do. So some things like that, but a funeral, No, typically the funeral, I'm kind of in mode and I'm, working and I'm doing what I need to do to take care of that family and that person. Daily vlogs. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I have, I don't have the time to do that. I wish I could. I know Lauren Little Miss Funeral does a lot of that kind of stuff. The oldest person I've worked on, I had 104. Someone had asked that question for Brian and Ryan and me on a video, and now I'd have to go back to the email. I think one of them did someone who was like 107, and it was maybe one of their grandmas. Don't quote me on that. I got to go back to that email he sent me, but I was like 107 or whatever is just crazy. Someone differently who's had chemo and radiation. Typically, no, maybe a stronger fluid because the tissue definitely reacts differently. A lot of times the person will be really loosey-goosey no matter how much fluid is used, that their tissue just doesn't firm up. I know sometimes people have said they've had reactions, different coloring, things like that. There are so many medicines and chemicals put into people for different treatments and different things that they go through. We have no idea what people are on. We have no idea what they've gone through typically when we get them into our care and go into embalm. We typically maybe hear a story later as to the treatments and things that they've gone through, but we don't always know that. We just have to watch what the body does and respond in the ways we know to what is happening there. Ashley, yes, call a funeral home. They're not going to let you watch an embalming most likely, but take a tour of a funeral home. See all the areas of the funeral home, kind of see what they do. Ask them about a job shadow. See if you could hang out with a funeral director for a day. If you don't ask, you're never going to know. The only way you can really know what happens in this business is by getting a behind the scenes in terms of what does a funeral do when they come in the morning? What do they do all day? What's it like, making phone calls and doing paperwork and doing all the other things. Usually someone has a good experience at a funeral and they want to be a funeral director. Like they get the warm fuzzy and they want that to continue. There is 95% more to the business than just that 5% of actually the funeral time. So you have to see all the rest. So it's very important. Let's see. It sounds like Mike's asked, it sounds like there's a huge shortage of morticians and a decline in mortuary science students. Any thoughts on the reason? So there's not a huge shortage of morticians per se because there's a lot of businesses closing down and consolidating, and the business is changing. It's going to look very different in about 10 years. There's not really a decline in mortuary science students, but there's a huge bridge in the gap, or we need a bridge in the gap between the old versus the new. Because the business has changed so much, the old is kind of fighting against the new, the generations, and not embracing and teaching. And so the older generations get a grudge and the newer generation gets a grudge. And so there's this huge gap in the middle right now. And I think a lot of what I do is try to bridge that gap, working with the students and trying to instill in them information and knowledge and encouragement. And there's a lot of change coming and it has to be embraced by all sides. Every culture has different rituals and rites. What's been the most unusual that you've witnessed? I really like watching the Muslim kind of routines and rituals and rites that they do. There's something really beautiful about them. There's something beautiful about a man standing down in a hole, lowering his wife into position in the hole after she's been shrouded in white sheets, and laying her on a pillow of dirt, perfectly, and things. It's very beautiful. It's very methodical in what they go through, and I really have appreciated watching that religion. I think there's beautiful moments in a lot of the things I see, and it's not so much just religion, it's just actions of human nature, of saying goodbye to somebody, and what people feel compelled to do. A mother rocking her baby still, even though the baby is dead, and that's beautiful. there's a lot of things I want to witness and I want to be part of, and I just haven't done, had the opportunity to do it yet. I would love to see the funeral pyre, out west, and see that kind of in action. I know Chelsea talks about that Tolman got to do that in her book. And, I just think that's something that I would love to get to go do, to experience. So thank you, Michael, for those questions. Let me grab a few more of your questions. When my daughter passed away, I wanted to spend time with her before she was cremated. Oh, shoot, Judy. I was told it's against the law to view a body that has not been embalmed. I had to fight for it and I was to do so. It is actually not law that a body has to be embalmed. Never does a body have to be embalmed. A funeral home can have the policy that to have a public viewing, you need to have an embalming. That's a funeral home policy. That is not a law. You own essentially your loved one and have every right to see them, no matter what their condition or anything. You may have to sign something that the funeral home has for, mental anguish or something like that. That way, if the person is in a traumatic accident, or maybe they had an autopsy and if they're not embalmed, they can't get them all back together, or there may be leakage or something. They may have you sign something, but it is your right completely to see your loved one in every possible situation. So if somebody tells you no, tell them that is not the law. Take them to a different funeral home who will allow you to. I know funeral directors might hate that answer because, it makes more work for them if they have to prepare an unembalmed body for a viewing when there's been a situation like an autopsy or something. But it is your right to see your loved one. Even if they've been in an accident, it's your right to see their hand or their foot or something of them. So advocate for yourself and know that if you ever encounter that situation, you have every right to see them before cremation, before immediate burial, before anything. It's very important. I don't know why people bury with their glasses on. Sometimes it's just how the family remembered them, and so that's why they want it done. We always ask if the people want to donate their glasses to the Lions Club or to an organization that reuses glasses for people who can't afford them, or third world countries or whatever. When you go through embalming school, do you have to attend autopsies? No, you do not. Actually, I've viewed one when a family wanted a private one done in the funeral home. I stayed and viewed it, the autopsy. However, I've tried to go to medical examiners and say, hey, can I come view an autopsy? I just want to see one in its entirety in your capacity, not just in the funeral home and kind of that lay setting. They can't because of laws and privacy, and I don't know if it's HIPAA at that point. I don't know what it's called, but we're not allowed. I'm just like any other person. Just because I'm a funeral director, I can't attend an autopsy. So have not seen one in actually the medical examiner place. Thank you. I try to be blunt with you guys, but not sensationalistic. That's kind of what I do. Do birthmarks go away when you die? No. But I don't know why they ever would. But I know, like, I've seen and cared for people with port wine stains and things, which are technically birthmarks, and they don't go away. They're still there. What are your thoughts on more environmentally concerned death practices? Natural burial, alkaline hydrolysis, recomposition. I think there needs to not just be two choices, cremation, burial. And the thing is, there's not just two. Under each of those kind of headings now, there's all these different options. And I think that's good because we are a society of multitudes of likes, dislikes, personalities, everything. And so I think that we need to have more options. And it shouldn't just be go to a funeral home just to be buried or have a fire cremation and then seek something else out elsewhere. Like, we as funeral homes should be able to offer all the things that are legally allowed in our states and in our areas and be able to help families with those options. However, a lot of it is not legal in all areas yet because we just don't know the long-term effects of things. We don't know the long-term processes and the ways that legally it may affect things, and there's a lot of research that goes into these things and a lot of care and consideration. So we can't just jump into things. Think about how long it took regular fire cremation to become mainstream and to become an actual thing and to become legalized. So it's a slow process, just like anything that happens in our society and in medical communities or legal communities. It just takes time. And I know it gets frustrating for a lot of people when you see something that you think might be a great option for you, but it's actually a prototype or it's a long way off. So do you have many families that request to watch you dress and casket their loved ones? No, actually not hardly even at all, which is interesting. Once in a great while, we'll have people that want to help do their loved one's hair or makeup. Usually it's maybe a hairdresser in the family or, a very hands-on, typically it's a female, daughter or sister or something, but it's very rare unless it's like religious, kind of like the Mormons where they come and they dress their own church members, community members, but it's very rare that I ever have a family that wants to dress, casket, cosmetize, and things themselves. Hey, Briar, all the way down under, across the world. That's amazing to me that somebody in Australia is watching me like right now. That's unbelievable. Have you heard of amputees having a funeral home store their limbs so they can be buried, cremated with their whole body? Yeah, and typically what happens, Zane, is they will cremate the amputation and then save that cremated remains. You don't actually save the whole limb, but you'll cremate just the amputation at the time. Yeah, Lisa, down in Sydney, you have people wait 2 weeks to have a funeral due to many religious beliefs, they having to be buried the next day. We don't have to wait that long. And I know I've heard in some countries that there is a long wait. Even in some states here, you have to, there's a mandatory wait period before somebody can be cremated, before somebody can be buried, and other states within a certain time period you have to be buried or cremated. So a lot of different beliefs on that, but 2 weeks would be extreme here. Sometimes we can't get a doctor to sign a permit within a week or so, and that's kind of extreme for like a cremation, but typically people are buried within 1 to 2 weeks. 2 weeks would be a very extended time period. Usually it's within 4 to 5 days somebody is buried here. Let's see. So Jeremy's asking, do we ever have people that want to stay the night during visitation? Or no, have visitation at their home and stay the night in the house with them the night before the service. So we did that with my niece. We brought her to our home after, in between visitation and service in our casket and had her in our home with us. We just didn't want to leave her at the church where nobody else was there. It just felt comfortable to us to have her with us, and that's what my sister wanted. We don't get asked that often, I think, because people don't understand that it's a possibility. There are still people and cultures, the Amish will bring the person home and they're at their home for the funeral and the visitation and everything. I can't imagine, especially if I had a child, I would ever leave them. I would want them either at my home or I would be moving on into the funeral home for those few days and never leaving. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine leaving, some family members, depending on their connection. Hey, Justine in Wisconsin. So I think definitely there are times that people would want to do that, but it doesn't happen often because people don't realize it's a possibility. So hopefully, people will maybe embrace it a little more. But our society has become very hands off with funerals and with deceased. look at the direct cremation. It's basically take my loved one from the place of death. We never want to see him again. We're going to have him cremated and give him back to me, and we're not going to have a service. This has become very commonplace because we don't want to confront death. We don't want to see the person because it's a little too real. What's G-O-D? Raid. Ooh, I don't even, God raid. Why is, I don't even know what that means. So yeah, I think it's just become a change in our society. So I know the viscera are put at the bottom of the casket in a bag. What is the bag made out of? Plastic. It's like typically a heavy, thick plastic that won't puncture or rip very easily in case it does come in contact with maybe a sharp rib or something like that. Some people use like a garbage bag, but sometimes that's a little too flimsy. So, oh, that's nice. I have no idea what that is. So, G-O-D raid. I'm going to have to look that up. So, thank you guys. I have never seen that before. I was literally trying, if you couldn't tell, trying to think of what G-O-D might be an acronym for. Oh, Talari, is that how you pronounce your name? If you're going to school, are you in my student group that's on Facebook? It's called Funeral Directing 101, and it's all students, pre-mortuary, mortuary students, apprentices, just getting some information and finding, a place. Yes, I do need moderators at this point because people are asking a lot of questions. That would be fun. I don't know what that means, so I'm going to have to look into that. I'm kind of at that point where I went from, handling it all myself. I almost need a little help now, which is crazy to think that. So thank you guys. Water cremation, head over and watch my video touring in a water cremation facility. Drew, you would be an excellent moderator, actually. You've been kind of with me for the whole time, so I appreciate the support that you give. I'm going to answer just 2 more questions and then sign off. I don't like to keep these too long. Is it true they cut off limbs if they don't fit in the casket, or is it a myth? That's a myth. However, I will say I have heard about funeral homes doing some unscrupulous things such as that, and they're the people, they're going to get found out and they're going to get in trouble because they're doing illegal practices, and it is illegal to desecrate a deceased body, and it's terrible if anybody does that. If someone has a G-tube, do you use that hole for aspirating during embalming? So we try and make as few holes as possible. So if there's already an incision or a hole from some other procedure, we'll remove the apparatus that's there, and we will use those holes and those incisions and those, places to go in so that we can make as few holes and entrances into the person as possible, because the less holes, less leakage. So we don't want to add to already what we're going to be suturing up on the person. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to try and do this a little more often now that I'm getting in my office in a rhythm. I have a lot of stuff going. Watch for my week of videos. This is my Ricky. This is my, as you can see, it's not coming along quickly. I still need to figure out, because at my old space, I had that cool reclaimed barnwood background. And here, I'm going to give you guys, grab my phone. I literally have nothing. That's a big dumpster. It's still outside. We're going to do a full spin. Here is my new desk I put together. I feel very handy and set up. So it's a pretty blank boring space right now. So if you have any ideas how to jazz me up, let me know, because I'm gonna have to start doing some things with backgrounds and such soon, and I have no backgrounds. It's gonna be me against a gray wall, which is super boring. So this is my woman cave for right now. I need to start decorating and figuring out what to do with it. So wall stickers. I don't even know what I'd get a wall sticker of. A fat head of myself over. Ooh, sorry, that tickles me. But yeah, thank you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Keep the questions coming. Keep watch for all that is coming. Bye, guys.